All right, man. I want to talk about that gorilla.
Tell me about this gorilla. I know this is kind of last week, and we heard about it all week. What's on your mind?
You know, I'm just gonna tell you what I'm thinking, and then you let me know how on track I am. So basically, this gorilla is in its enclosure. The gorilla belongs in the jungle. We take the gorilla out of the jungle or the mountains, and you put it in a zoo for humans to watch. We're messing with him, okay? And then the kid falls into the gorilla exhibit. He falls into the cage. Now, this isn't just like the lady was like, accidents do happen. How come it's been like 40 years or something that the zoo's been around, the gorilla exhibit's been there? Nobody's fallen in until now. Nobody's been dumb enough to just, oh, I'm going to drop straight off of this freaking cliff, climbing over obstacles to jump in with a freaking animal. Even if there wasn't an animal in there. What even a child should know better that not to jump. You know what I mean?
Well, how long does a parent have to be looking away? Because obviously this kid didn't just like
Right.
lean against the fence and fall through it or something. I mean, he had to like climb
Yeah.
over some shit. So
Yeah. I
no one
wanted
was
it
looking at him for a while.
for a while because it takes like 30 seconds at least. That's if you know what I mean? And the other thing I wanted to say is that people are like, "Well, where were the other like bystanders who weren't the kid's parents at the zoo? Nobody? You mean nobody saw this kid climbing into the exhibit, right?
Yeah.
How come nobody spoke up?" And I'm like, I'll tell you why nobody spoke up. Because the kid's mom is a black lady. And when you see their kids misbehaving in public and you try to tell them how to behave, you get attitude. You don't nobody tell me how to parent my goddamn kids.
It was a black woman? I didn't know that.
Yes, it
So
was a
all
black.
this news coverage, no one, the whole fucking week, everyone was talking about it on the radio and TV. No one mentioned it was a black family.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, that's another thing. They never mention anything negative about black people. I think Fox News said something about the dad had a criminal record.
Well, I did notice in the stories I was reading on, online articles, the woman even tweeted or posted online or something. Oh my God, this happened to my baby. Thank the Lord that my child's okay and stuff. I would have been like, okay, fair enough. Thank God your child's okay. I get it. It's your kid. You don't want him injured. But Jesus Christ, couldn't you just say, I can't believe I allowed that to happen? Couldn't you
No
say, like,
responsibility. No
yeah, no, it
responsibility.
just blew me away that this person didn't feel apologetic like they didn't say
What
anything
is
like
it?
this is my fault. I should have been
Dude,
watching, but I was distracted by my other child who like
abs-
scraped his arm. I mean, come on, some excuse,
the
something. But
word personal responsibility and accountability to a black person, it's like if you have holy water putting it near a vampire. It's get it away from me. Ah! You know what I mean? Never. It stays far away.
and
Okay?
I think something else that gets lost here is a lot of people got lost in the debate of should we have shot it, should we not have shot it. Okay, I get it. It's a human being, and we don't want to risk its life, so they shot the gorilla. But at the same time, I can't help but feel injustice for this gorilla. I'm like, if you watch the video, the
Yeah.
gorilla is kind of shielding the child from the crowd, like he's keeping
Oh,
himself like
I wanted to say, yeah, I
over
want
the
to say
kid.
another thing about this gorilla. We are lucky that the gorilla did not tear that child limb from limb, okay? Because there's other videos of where kids fell into the gorilla pit, like in 1996 or something. One was in England, right? And if you notice on that video, everybody in the crowd is like, "Stay still, stay still. Everybody, be quiet. You don't want
Yeah,
to. You
be
don't want
quiet.
to. You don't want to scare or frighten the gorilla to make him, flip out." Okay, that's probably a more highly intelligent crowd of people than the Cincinnati Zoo, where people are screaming, going
Exactly.
wild. I'm with you, baby. Mama loves you. Okay, it's like,
It's like the gorilla's getting agitated. Shut the fuck
right.
up.
He's getting stressed out by you guys screaming.
And they're like, oh, look, the gorilla's agitated. Fucking cap his ass.
Yeah, and I honestly think that now tell me what your opinion is on this. That they shot the gorilla because they didn't want to risk blacks rioting over letting a black kid die. Because if you might give them the gorilla the benefit of the doubt, but you don't want to like even risk, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to be like, well, you guys value white life more than black life. And I think we need to talk about this, because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but
Well, we're at 5:30 right now. I don't know how much time. I mean, we can do this one for
this
10 or
isn't
15, and then we
all
can do
right.
another one if you want.
Okay.
But yeah, this. let me hear it.
Okay, they were talking they before they found out that the child and the family were black. The Black Lives Matter people and the liberals were saying that, oh, Harambe is a 17-year-old black male who was gunned down. White privilege, it was a white, because like Harambe, it was like a white child, that they killed the gorilla because he was black to protect white life. And then it was like, oh, everybody, they shot the gorilla. It was a black kid that fell in. So these people will use they have carte blanche to talk about race and blame everything, but you can't talk about race. You know what I mean?
Well, that ends today.
Right.
We're gonna talk about it.
And another thing that I wanted to say is that gorilla, he may have saved the taxpayers money down the line, even if he killed the child. Because now get this, his dad had something like 25 criminal convictions on his record. And there's not just like little stuff like, oh, I was caught with an ounce of weed or something. This was like kidnapping, aggravated assault, armed robbery, like serious like stuff. And then we get the whole thing. He's turning his life around because he hadn't been like convicted of a crime, and I think it's since like 2006. It's been like 10 years, right? So he's turning his life around. Another what I want to say here is like turning his life around. He's the father of 6 children from 2 different women, and they are all out of wedlock. That's turning your life around? You're like this guy who has 25, crimes on his record, serious ones, has 6 children out of wedlock? What the hell is that?
Maybe he threw the fucking kid in the gorilla pit. Trying to get rid of one of them.
Trying to get right. I mean, that's just insane that you have 6 children. And you have 4 children with this one lady, Michelle Gregg, and you never thought to maybe marry her?
Well, you know how many white people out there? This is a huge difference between the races out there. Whites, Asians, Europeans, whatever. They'll forego having children for 10, 15, 20 years until they're financially stable. They have a house. They can send their kid to school, a nice school in a nice neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Offer a good life to this child. Minorities, they tend to just show up in America and start cranking them out and start collecting benefits. Get on generational welfare. Or Muslims will come over. They have 2 or 3 wives. Each one has 4 or 5 kids. They have no incentive to not have children, because the government's always there to give you free medical care, free dental care, free education. Like, everything's free. They hardly pay into the system. They game the system and just crank out kids.
They don't think about the big picture. They don't have forethought. You know what I mean? Thinking about where am I going to be in 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Well, I think this is a good segue to talk about Muslim immigration, because if you watch a lot of these videos where the Muslims are coming over, they're telling the person recording, yeah, we're coming over here, we're going to marry your women, your kids are going to look like us, they're going to have beards, and they're going to praise Allah, and we're going to outproduce you. And they're really open about it. Like, that's a form of their jihad. Is like there's like armed conflict, and then there's mass migration, and overcoming the local population just by breeding them out.
Yeah, they can't beat us in an open fight, in an open warfare. So, they're doing it. It's like a 5th column, but the liberals are letting them in. They're just letting them right in. And I mean, the one thing I want to say about these liberals is the feminists. Where are the feminists? Because their feminists they're just constantly bitching about white men and rape culture, right?
Non-existent.
Okay, the rape. I was telling you the black on white rape statistics is they rape white women at a 2,000% increased rate than white men rape black women, and overall rapes it's not a 2,000% increase, but it's significantly higher. How come I never hear a feminist say anything to admonish black men? Like, could you maybe stop raping people, white women and black women? Is that
Or Muslim men. I
and
mean,
Muslims are the same thing.
do you
It's
ever hear
this.
about a feminist complaining about Muslims
They
beating the
don't
shit
dare.
out of women?
They
No.
don't dare.
Honor killings? That's never mentioned.
All they do is bitch about Western civilization and white men because they're an easy target. And you got to think, I'm like, hey, this country, okay, women, they haven't always had equal rights. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like maybe they should have had a little bit more rights or something down the line. But you got to think of it. It's like where does a woman have it the best? It may not be like, oh, I've got everything I want. It's a perfect society for women. But where have they had it the best? In Western civilization that is dominated by white men. But they never want to give us any credit.
Yeah, you can't go that long. I mean, if you pay attention to it and read certain websites, you really can't go long without hearing about, oh, a woman in Afghanistan had sulfuric acid thrown on her face because she insulted some man by not looking at him. I mean, just
Oh yeah.
amazing shit where, like, over here in America, feminists are bitching about being triggered or something stupid.
Just they have to keep inventing stuff.
Over
They have
there,
to
they're legitimately being disfigured,
let me
beaten,
okay,
beheaded,
Yeah.
can't drive without a like. These are real anti-women cultures, and over here they have the only thing they can bitch about is the pay gap myth that's been debunked so many times, or other nonsensical issues.
Right. And the one thing this reminds me of the diversity thing. I was telling you about like Donald Trump made a comment in one of his speeches where he was like, "My African American," and I think I was reading the comments on that story, and there were a bunch of liberals who were like, "Unlike the rest of you Trump supporters, we all embrace diversity." I'm like, embrace diversity for what? I'm like, I can embrace diversity. Like, say we're working at NASA, right? And we're trying to build a better rocket. We might be like, hey, let's get a Chinese rocket scientist over here. Let's get a Russian rocket scientist. Maybe we'll bring a German over. Let's get some fresh eyes on this project, see how they do it. Maybe we'll make a better product. But it's not, hey, we're all rocket scientists working at NASA. Let's bring over a sub-Saharan African with an IQ of 70. Let's see what he thinks. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to say, like, this is the diversity is going to enrich us. It's going to make us better. And I'm just going to be like, yes, I want to learn about your rich culture, your heritage. Can you teach me about how to cure AIDS by raping a baby? I want to know about that. Can you teach me about, like, the benefits of female genital mutilation? Can you teach me how to, like, break into a house and force myself onto a woman? I want to learn your culture.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's ridiculous. I mean, diversity isn't like we bring in the scum of the earth and get their point of view and their opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah, it seems like, and I know people always say, well, our country was founded on immigrants, and we should always be open to more people coming here. It makes our country stronger. Well, the immigrants we had at the beginning were European immigrants whose IQs are 100 roughly. And now it just seems like, well, let's bring in all the Middle Easterners, all the Africans. I mean, if you go to New York City, I don't know if you've been to New York City lately, There's quite a
Not
few
lately.
fucking Africans. I remember the last time I went there, I was a teenager, and when I exited the bus station, I had to wait on the sidewalk for my uncle to come pick me up, and so I think I was like 13 or 14, and I'm standing there with my luggage, waiting for my uncle to come up, and a Muslim man pulls up in like a Cadillac, rolls down the window, and starts blowing me kisses and like waiting for me to come into his car.
Oh,
And I
God.
just like start walking back and rolling my luggage back so I'm away from the curb, and I'm like, well, I'm in New York City. Like, was New York City always a cesspool of
Filth and crime.
immigrant shit? And it's not even, I could say immigrant. What I really mean is like third world shit. Because we could
Yeah.
have a bunch of Europeans, a bunch of Japanese, a bunch of Russians come over here. It probably wouldn't be that bad at all. Because
At
these
least-
are all advanced cultures.
I
But
think,
you-
yeah, at least in a generation or two. You
but
know?
you bring in Nigerians or Congolese or whoever the fuck they come from.
Yeah.
We're bringing over those 70 IQ people that you talk about, and they're not enriching our culture. Yeah, our culture's more diverse. It's got more shit at the bottom of the barrel, but that's not helping us at all.
I feel like we're bringing in the perpetual victims because they come to this country with a 70 IQ, maybe an 85 IQ on average, and then they're like, wow, it's really hard to like progress and get ahead, and why am I like in trouble with the law? You know, and this is like, why am I having like 10 kids that I can't take care of? It's because you have all these low IQ people coming in, and then the Democrats and the liberals get a hold of them, and they're like, hey, you're poor, not because you have a low IQ, but because the big bad white man has a big grand conspiracy to rip you off and cheat you. You know, I mean, if you take a look at it like that, African Americans, they've been here for 400 years, and they're still bitching. And if you look at, I mean, their average IQ is 85. You look at Chinese immigrants, Japanese immigrants. A lot of them, they had like their property confiscated. They were, you know, they faced a lot of racism as well. But now they make more money than white people. They go to jail less often than white people. The racist, mean white people who control everything and have a big conspiracy and have the institutional racism. I'm like, where is the institutional racism? You know what I mean? Where is it? I want to see it. And the one thing I wanted to bring up about that rape statistic, where black men rape white women at a 2,000% higher rate. Remember that Duke lacrosse thing?
Yeah.
That scandal? Where it was like a black woman was raped, supposedly by they were all over that and ready to crucify those guys. And then they found out she was making it up. So I'm like, where's the white people that get off easy? They always say like, well, black women don't admit to they don't report all the rapes that white men commit. I'm like,
Yeah, because
really?
all those white men are out there just dying to rape a black woman.
Right. I don't know. Ridiculous, man. Do you have anything else to say?
Gosh, I had something on the tip of my tongue. I wanted to talk about like what is if we could give a profile of a black immigrant with an IQ of 80. Let's talk about what makes these people different. Like here's a great example. You see these news stories where some black kid breaks into some old folks' home or something, or I'm saying like elderly people.
Mm-hmm.
And grandpa used to be in the Marines in Korea, so he still got his service pistol. He caps this 17-year-old thug. He's dead on the scene or whatever. They interview his mom, and his mom's like, oh, he was a good boy. He never did nothing wrong. He was trying to do good. He went to church.
Didn't do nothing.
Even though he was armed, those people didn't need to shoot him.
Right.
It's like, and everyone's always like, wow, that woman is a fucking idiot. And what we're not realizing is that this woman isn't special among that community. This woman represents that community.
Yeah.
Like, we always think as people of average intelligence or above average or whatever, an intelligence higher than theirs, we're like, Wow, they must have found one of the fucking idiots to
They
interview
like
here.
were searching for the dumbest person to find. But
but
no.
but what we've because it's hard for us to put ourselves into that community. Like if you could live in a black community, say if you're a white person listening, and maybe there's black people or Asians or whoever it is that's listening to this. If you don't live in the ghetto, you don't really have to think about what it's like to be in the ghetto, right?
Yeah.
All those people there, or I wouldn't say all of them, a lot of them are pretty fucking dumb, just like that woman example.
Yeah.
But it's
This
hard for us to identify with it. It's hard for us. People are like, well, shit, they're not doing good in school because I guess we're just not giving them enough funding, or maybe there is racism. Like we're looking
right.
at it from a white set of eyes or an Asian set of eyes or whatever you want to say.
Well, that's
Um,
remember that guy who discovered DNA? It was like Watson and Crick. I can't remember if it was Watson or Crick. But he was like, we're dumping all this money into Africa basically, and we expect them to get better because we think that they're the same as white people, and that they would get better because white people would get better. But all the evidence points to that they're not the same. And guess what happened to that guy? He
What happened?
lost he lost he lost his job. He was employed at like the Coldbrook Institute, and he lost all of his research grants and all this stuff. Reputation ruined for just stating the cold hard truth.
Well, in
That's
science, you learn in science that the scientific, there's a scientific method, the foundation of science. You basically form a hypothesis, you gather information, conduct an experiment, test it out, see does it work or not, and then if it doesn't work, you're like, well, shit, my hypothesis must be wrong because the evidence staring me back in the face tells
right.
me something different from what I think.
Even
But
if you don't like the evidence,
yeah, but the
you
liberals
gotta, yeah,
liberals are like, well, let's see, we've given $1 trillion in welfare to blacks over the last 40 years, or maybe more. I don't know how much it is. It's a shitload if you
yeah.
can think of all the welfare and Social Security and Medicare and all this other shit that we give out for free year after year after year after year after year. Gosh, we're probably not giving enough, or America must still be too damn racist.
Yeah.
Well,
It's the
let's look at
perpetual
the evidence.
victims.
Let's not try to force the evidence to fit your hypothesis here.
Yeah.
Let's do the opposite, and
That's,
maybe we'll
dude,
get
I'm going to say
somewhere.
about this the perpetual victims, where Africa is a shithole that can't get right because of colonialism, right? That's what they blame it on. Colonialism, blah, blah, blah. And, but you look at every other country where it was like Japan got nuked, Germany was destroyed, the Japanese Americans were put in concentration camps, had their property taken away, the Jews had a Holocaust. They're all back on their feet doing well. And all this stuff happened pretty much in the 20th century, around the same time as colonialism, and everybody else is back on their feet, but not the perpetual victims. And it's like they have to be, you see, this narrative has to be created that they are constantly being cheated and victimized, because you can't let the truth get out that they're in a bad predicament, because the average IQ in many parts of Africa is 70 or below. What kind of a
That's pretty
society are they going to create?
Exactly. Like, I guess.
And I want to follow this up with some of the experiences that I've had working with African Americans and going to businesses that employ basically all African Americans or a majority of them. Okay? And this is what's going to happen come down the line when white people are replaced. And this is the thing, it's like white people, the way I'm not looking at it is where it's like, oh God, white people are going to be replaced with African Americans or sub-Saharan Africans or Muslims. Boy, I'm going to lose my white privilege. That's going to suck. I'm a fearful white person. No, we're taking people who have 100 IQs and they have something about them biologically which contributed to them developing a culture and a society, and they're getting replaced by people with freaking 70 IQs. What kind of society
Look
You know,
at Detroit, man. Look at
Detroit, Baltimore, every city that's controlled by black people is a dump. You would think that if it was like we need more, we need black police chiefs, black mayors, black city council people, black schools, everything, that it would all be better. But no, it's worse. And I'll give you an example, dude. I've had so many incidences where I was working with an African American woman, and say for example, you're trying to calculate like your paycheck, what it's going to be after 2 weeks, roughly, and you're like, okay, I get paid $12 an hour, working 30 hours a week, and we get paid every 2 weeks, right? So I mean, there's several ways that you can do that. $12 an hour times 30 is 360 times 2. After 2 weeks, that's what, 720, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just do that in my head, like, in 2 seconds. And she's got her calculator out, right? And I'm just like, 720. She's like, oh, like 30 seconds later, she gets that answer. She's like, oh, you good at math. Look at you so good at math. And I'm like, I'm not good at math. This is simple stuff that anybody should be able to do. You know what I mean? But
any 100 IQ person could do.
Right, it's not, simple stuff. It's even if it was like, instead of doing 12 times 30, you could do 12 times 3 is 36, add a 0, you got 360, times it by 2. It's super easy, but you're getting, like, this is what I'm talking about. There is a difference. I've seen people who can't count money, where they're counting the money and they lose track, and they're like, well, I can't make change, I can't count money. And let me tell you about this. Go to Dunkin' Donuts, right? And all of the workers there are either mixed or black. The service is incredibly slow. Okay, is that a coincidence? I go to any kind of restaurant I go to where it's a majority of the workers are black, you get attitude and you get poor service.
Hey, like the VA hospital. Fuck.
Is it do you think it's a coincidence?
No, not at all. I mean, a person with a high IQ can optimize a process, do a lot of things in their head, They have a better work ethic usually.
I mean,
they don't get confused by shit.
Right, and if you're intelligent, you're like, okay, this job sucks. I'm making $8 an hour, but if I do a good job here, I can get a good reference. Then I move on, or like I get promoted a little bit.
Before I forget to mention it, earlier I had wanted to mention white privilege. That was what was on the tip of my tongue. You always hear the term white privilege thrown around, like, you don't understand. You whites, you just accept that the police, like, it's in your mind already that the police aren't going to harass you, or that you're going to get looked at better in a job interview, or whatever, or that you're not going to rob me when I'm walking down. Like, no one's going to cross to the other side of the street when you walk by,
right?
Because they're not afraid of you. Like, that's your white privilege. Like, fuck, everyone has something they've earned. Like, it's not like, oh, whites, it's not like God was like, well, I'm going to create the races, and whites are going to get this privilege, and then blacks are going to get this type of discrimination. It's like, there's a reason that people cross to the other side of the street when some black teenagers are walking down, because they tend to beat the shit out of white people. And if it was white people walking down the street, white people don't really beat the shit out of white people. It's only common sense. It's not that it's because of your color. Well, I guess they're closely tied together, but white people have earned their positive discrimination.
Yeah.
And black people have earned their negative discrimination that they suffer from. It's not that, well, you just get it. Like, you just get this positive privilege or whatever. It's been earned because white people produce. White people are generally peaceful and nonviolent. White people are charitable. You're not going to get your, like you said earlier, it's 20 times more likely for a black to rape a white woman.
I said 2,000.
Or 2,000. Oh, holy shit.
2,000%.
Oh, well, what's 2,000? 2,000% is 20 times.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so.
See, I'm bad at math.
Gosh, you suck. So, yeah, like, how can you say whites have this unjustified privilege? They've earned it. Whites have earned their privilege. It's not that it's a privilege that it's undeserved. I mean, white people have produced this great civilization that we live in.
I wanted to make two comments about that. The one thing where you say white people are generally peaceful, people will be like, "Oh, white people are peaceful. My ass. What about World War One, World War Two? They're always," and I'm like, "Okay, yes, we get involved in wars, but take this into consideration. I mean, what would happen if you equipped sub-Saharan Africa with nuclear weapons, chemical, biological weapons, tanks, air, I mean, it would the madness. I mean, they're killing. I know there was like the Nigeria Civil War, there was like 6 million Nigerians killed, and they didn't have near the armaments that we had. I think like 1 million Hutus and Tutsis were killed with like machetes and spears and maybe AK-47s. You know what I mean? What would these people do if they had the technology, the industrial capacity to wage warfare? It would be scary. And then I wanted to say something like I saw this Facebook thing going around. I think some lady said something was about people hate or dislike black people or judge them because of the color of their skin. And it's like, it's because of the color of my skin. I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin. That's kind of an arbitrary characteristic. It could just be the color of your hair or the color of your car. Nobody really cares all that much. But what is the problem is there is a certain behavior that is associated and to be expected with people who have that skin color. That's, you know what I mean? Like racism is, it's not even racism. It's just like, you guys behave this way. It just is what it is. It's experience. And I get people, I've heard this crap all the time where racism isn't natural. It's taught.
Learned behavior. Yeah,
it's a learned behavior. And I'm like, so who taught the first people to be racist? Where did it come from? Who taught the first people? And it's a learned behavior. It doesn't have to be taught. It's experience. If you grow up living around blacks, you're going to be like, wow.
Oh yeah,
it's all just due to your experience.
I remember I grew up in a military family, and we, the military is a melting pot of society. Like, you have different races, different economic backgrounds. You have all sorts of people in the military, and those people have children. So I got to go to a school on a military post where you had Asians, blacks, whites, everything you can think of. And as a child, you don't really think a whole lot about, gosh, I wonder if the the racial makeup of this school is going to show me any different characteristics in racial groups like violence. And looking back on it, it was always the black kids that were getting into lots of trouble, starting fights, or usually white kids, it would be a one-on-one fight. Blacks, it would be 20 people swarming around you. Like it was total disorder. It's like a scene from the third world. It's like, here we are in civilization, and here's this group of people that act like they're savages. And I remember going on, usually the movies that were getting released, they'd get released on base like a month later, but they'd be really cheap to go see. So even a kid could go to the movie theater with like $2 and go watch any movie he wanted to. And so I would go and watch new movies, and every fucking time you're trying to enjoy the movie. I remember like Pearl Harbor came out, or Black Hawk Down. There's always a group of like 20 black teenagers hooting, hollering, making commentary, screaming, laughing their ass off. Basically totally disrupting the movie experience and not giving a shit if anybody else can enjoy the movie. Just acting like a bunch of shitbags. Mm-hmm. I had a bike stolen in like the 6th grade on base. Like, normally you could just leave your bike anywhere, but a black kid stole it. then
How
I got
did
a
you
lock.
know?
Well, the cops figured out who had done it or some shit like that, or somebody had seen him or something. But
Oh,
um, not that the cops give a shit about a bicycle.
right.
And then a couple of years later, I had a lock on this bike, and it was one of those locks where it's like four numbers, and you know what the numbers are, and you twist it until it comes to that number combination. And I
Yeah.
go to the swimming pool. When I get out of the swimming pool, my bike is gone. So somebody either used like bolt cutters or something to just chop through it, or they
Yeah.
figured out the combo. They probably just used bolt cutters. But it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I guarantee you, it's the same people doing this shit.
Yeah.
Like every stupid thing I can remember from childhood, like criminal activity or just people acting like savages.
Right. And they don't like to be called savages. But what the hell? Like, we have words in the English language for a reason: civilized, uncivilized, savages. And they were like, no, 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 I don't like that word civilized. I do not like it. Because it's like, when you're talking about, like, there's pygmies, right, in Africa, their average IQ is like 52. And they live, like, I don't even think, this has got to be like mankind maybe 50,000 years ago or something. The Stone Age is even a step up from this. They're just, they got slingshots, they're chucking rocks at stuff, and what would you call them? They're like, no, they're civilized too. And, what is the other thing? Like, the race is a social construct? Really? It doesn't exist? I don't know. I mean,
Well,
people. One thing I wanted to say about that is the intelligence stuff, and this is, look at Australia, the Australian Aborigine, average IQ of 62. Okay, and the white Australians get blamed for all of the Australian Aborigines' problems, but they were there in Africa, or no, Australia forever. They invented the stick, the boomerang that comes back. And there are ads on TV, public service announcements that say, hey, mate, don't sleep in the road. It's like, wait a minute, you have to be told not to go to sleep in the road. Because they're probably like, oh, I got to lay out my bedroll. Here's a nice clear path. It's the road, bro. But they have things where they tell people, do not go to sleep in the road because you'll get ran over. I'm not kidding you.
that's like a stray dog has to be like a wild dog
Well, dude,
practically knows not to do that, but these people are still doing it.
yeah, I was looking it up. A chimpanzee has an IQ of about 40. So if you're like the average Aborigine is 62, that means there's people a good chunk of people who have below 62, who are neck and neck with the chimpanzee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, but the reality, they're not poor and bad off because the white man is keeping them down. And that's just, we got to change that narrative. It's like, you got to just, listen, you guys, it sucks. You got an average IQ of 62. This is due to thousands of years of evolution in isolation. We can't change that overnight. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like saying we should just say that chimpanzees are equal to everyone else because we want to respect the chimpanzee. It's like, look, it's a fucking chimpanzee. It's got a 40 IQ, and that's just how it is. It's a fucking ape.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the truth has to get out there because people are like, you can, just as like it would be very difficult for, let's say, like me and you or a typical American to go live as an Aborigine did, like in a culture that is what would you call it, hunter gatherer or subsistence. It would be extremely like just weird for us to do that. For them to come here, it is extremely difficult. And
yeah, because you could go down in your, I guess, cultural or technology level. Like, yeah, I don't know how to make a boomerang. I've never had to, but I could learn it. But if you take an Aborigine, there's no way he's gonna learn chemistry,
right,
or atomic theory, or any of this other, or calculus. He's never Never gonna learn it.
Right. So they don't have really, and then if they do come to this society, and you're saying I can't learn chemistry, or I can't be a school teacher, or really anything that requires higher level thought, inevitably the patriarchy, the white male, the racism gets blamed for their lack of success, or for the statistical disparities that exist between white males and these other immigrant minority groups, you know? And I mean, I was looking up some things where, like, say, the most intelligent Asians are the ones from like Korea, Japan, and China. And their average IQs are something like between like 105, 107. And the ones who come to America, or who are, generations of, Chinese, whatever, Americans, they are a much greater percentage of their population is represented in the professional fields, like, like doctors, chemists,
Computer experts or whatever.
right, in the
Some type of science STEM field, basically.
yeah, and a much greater percentage of them are college graduates. And it's no secret. I mean, racism hasn't been able to stop them. It's because they're smart.
And they even got interned in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to someone earlier today. I said, this would be the equivalent. Like, I'm trying to think of the equivalent of for black people coming to a white culture. What would be the equivalent for us to understand? An analogy. And I gave the analogy that, let's say an alien civil, like, we go to Africa and we're like, holy shit, you guys don't even have a water well? You don't even have sanitation? What the fuck is going on? Like, these people are uncivilized. Well, what if an alien species came here? They're in like anti-gravity ships that are like 10 miles long.
Yeah.
Clean energy, 0-point energy. They can cure any disease with a swipe of, one instrument. They're basically far beyond what we're capable of, even as what we consider like the most advanced culture on Earth, the West. And so they come here and they look at us like, you guys burn fossil fuels for energy? Jesus. You don't know how to cure cancer? Oh my God. Like, they would look at us like, these people are pathetic. Like, they're so far below us.
Yeah.
Now, what should our response to this be?
Man, that's racist.
Those aliens are racist.
That's racist, man.
It's just pure racism.
No, they'd be like, that's ignorant.
Here.
That's ignorant. You aliens are ignorant.
It's like aliens. You
Oh,
need to
I wanted to say
diversify.
something too, man, about that. Say, for example, like racism. I always hear, if you ever mention anything about that there are differences, people will be like, that's ignorant. That's just ignorant. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about, like, there was the DNA guy. The guy who freaking discovered DNA. He said it. There was the one guy who invented, like, the transistor. It was, like, William Shockley. He won a Nobel Prize in physics.
Ignorant. Just ignorant.
He's ignorant. He's ignorant. He just doesn't know any better. He's ignorant. I mean, these are the most brilliant. I mean, they're probably the reason why we're even having, like, a computer and we're talking is because of, like, that guy who invented the Shockley. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But he's ignorant. But these, these sociology teachers, they're the ones who they know.
Oh, yeah.
They're not ignorant. I'm like, it's seriously.
Yeah, so that alien example.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was telling him, like, you could have two reactions. So you have this advanced alien culture that can basically gift you or include you in their technology and their advanced civilization, where you'll definitely be better off, but you're definitely going to know that you're dumber than these aliens, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can have two reactions. You can say to your people, I'd be like, wow, we're really lucky that these advanced aliens are here and that they can help us, because obviously we're never going to get there on our own. Or if we do,
it's going to take hundreds of years.
Oh, it's going to take a long time. Our brains, like, say their brains are literally like twice as big as ours, right?
Yeah.
They talk to each other through telepathy, and we're over here like, there's a group of us, the
Which
liberals would be like,
there's something
those
like
aliens are.
150-gram difference in brain size between like whites and blacks.
I'm glad you made sure to put that out.
Just wanted to throw that in there so
Throw
it's
that.
relevant.
So the liberals in our culture would say, look, these aliens are really racist, and we need to teach them about diversity so that we can interbreed with them, and we'll all be the same. And the aliens would look at that and they'd say, wow, if we interbreed with these fucking idiots, we're going to be a lot like the offspring are going to be a lot dumber.
Right.
They're just going to be a half breed. So aliens absolutely do not breed with them. And then the conservative humans would say, okay, guys, let's not fuck this up. These aliens are extremely smart. They can cure all our diseases. They can show us how to have clean all our pollution. We won't be relying on anything for energy. It's like free energy. We're going to have a utopia. Don't fuck this up. And the liberals would be like, no, 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 no. We got to rape somebody. No, I'm just kidding.
We got to rape.
But they would be talking about diversity and multiculturalism.
Alien privilege.
Trying to explain the aliens how racist they are and privileged. And the aliens would be like, we need to just carpet nuke this whole fucking planet because these people are so stupid. Or these people are hopelessly stupid. Let's just take over all their resources because we'll make use of it. They won't. They're still in the Stone Age.
They can't be helped.
They just can't. So it's like these low IQ people who are coming to the United States, instead of saying, oh, it's your racism and your white privilege that's holding us back. Look in the mirror, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Where you come from is a shithole, and we had nothing to do with it. That's all you. And you come over here, just let us fucking lead the way and enjoy the ride. Be thankful that you're here.
That's true because they're always saying like slavery. Black people are the only immigrants who came here in chains. I'm like, listen, they were slaves in Africa, and they came here, and they were slaves in America. It's going to be much better to be a slave in the United States than it is to be a slave, or possibly even free, in Africa at the time in the 1800s. I mean, there's places I don't think they even have the wheel to this day in some places. But I mean, you got to think about it. If you compare being like a slave, okay, like their quality of life, their standard of living, their longevity, you know what I mean? The food that they're eating, the nutrition they're getting, compared to today's standard, it probably looks like shit. You know what I'm saying? But back then, say for example in 1820, okay, you could be a white freaking Irish guy working on the railroad. You know, what's your life expectancy? You could be working in like a sweatshop in New York City, you know, or digging out a subway tunnel. What's your life expectancy? How much money are you making? How's your family doing? You know what I mean? Like, what is your guys' standard of living? Compare that to the Southern slave. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, you don't want to be a slave. You want to be free. I get that, but I just, save the tears, because what about the Irish, the Italians who came here, the Germans? They were working their balls off, doing all kinds of dangerous jobs. Their kids were working, their wives were working. You know, it wasn't just like black people had children working in the fields and the women in the big house. Like back then, like all these immigrants were working like 12, 16-hour days.
Yeah, we don't even, like, people today have no idea what hard work is. When you could get parts of your body ripped off by a machine at the factory, or you had to work a couple of jobs just to have food on the table, and everyone treated you like shit because you were Irish or something like that. I mean, wasn't like today.
And was there any workman's comp back then? No. Like, say you lose a hand, because say for example you lose a hand as a slave. Well, the master still owns you. He's got to do something with you. You're guaranteed a kind of like a basic income, a basic standard. You're not going to starve. But if you're like an Irishman and you're like, oh, I lost a foot, you're done for. You're done.
Well, we are approaching the 1 hour mark. Do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Um, I don't know what to say, man. We covered a lot of stuff. I think I got the point
Well,
across.
the overriding thing is that there needs to be a wake up call for people to look and see, like, I think your average person, they've heard all the liberal brainwashing their entire life, and they usually don't hear anyone say, "Hey, look, we've invited over, invited, we've allowed these people to immigrate to our country or brought them over here for slavery or for whatever reason, but now we are dealing with uncivilized peoples. We've brought
We're
them into
free.
civilization, and now we're dealing with the consequences of their stupidity, basically,
Yeah.
which is reflected in higher rates of violence, generational welfarism, rape.
Rape.
Just, I mean, it manifests itself in every.
Which is
They
why.
are in every part of our civilization now, and so it's manifested everywhere. And it seems confusing, like, gosh, why are these people acting like this? Why are they so uncivilized? But when you look at it from an IQ point of view, they're just acting out how their biology has predisposed them to act out.
Right. I want to go into this. What you made a good point. This is going to be for another episode. I want to go into why did they not free the slaves back in 1800, back in 1789? Okay. Now, Thomas Jefferson didn't free his slaves. Okay, a mystery. And Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, he proposed to repatriate all blacks to Africa or the Caribbean. Now, I think they had something. I think they knew something back then that blacks and whites could not coexist. I think they knew the problems that would arise in the future. So they were like, we got to get them back to, Liberia, someplace out of here. But they never did that. So now we have these issues. And people think that, like, wow, it's a mystery where it's like a mental gymnastics where you can be like, all men are created equal,
In
freedom.
science, it's called a comms razor.
Yep.
What is it? The most simple explanation is most likely the right explanation. So if you have to create this entire educational, liberal, I guess, brainwashing system to try and teach people that there's this institutional racism and white people have white privilege and there's microaggressions and blah, blah, it's just like this really complicated explanation to explain why black people aren't achieving the same as other races. Or you have a simple explanation. They're just 30 IQ points dumber than everyone else.
Well, that's African Americans are 15 points dumber.
Oh, yeah. African Americans aren't
But that's
average IQ
well,
of
the
70,
one thing I
but
want
their
to
average IQ is lower than ours.
right,
by
but you know
standard
what? That's
deviation.
probably today. In 2016, it's 15 points lower when there's been significant intermixing. Say 200 years ago or 150 years ago, there may have been less intermixing of white DNA, so their IQ may have been even lower.
Sure.
So that's something to think about. But we should wrap this up. I think this was a good talk.
Well, I enjoyed it always, and we will surely have more things to discuss as the week continues. There will be more news stories and more commentary coming. So please, if you enjoyed this YouTube video, subscribe, like, comment. We'll read some comments if people start commenting, and we'll see you next time.